do hope that you can all hear me first of all. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah? If you can't hear, maybe come a little further. And if you can't hear me behind, you're very welcome to move around. This is an informal time. So my name's Jess, I'm an independent celebrant, and really what that means is that I work with families to create a ceremony that is fitting for that person and really does justice to that person's life. As you probably know, James had no religion and he had no need of formality in his life. He was a free-spirited soul. And so here we are in this beautiful wild space. And this is a place where you can shed tears and where you can laugh and where you can be as free as he was in his life to express your emotions here today. You're here in honour of a life which was led with great vivacity and great passion. And he has left an immense legacy to this world. Those of you who did him great honour by standing with your skateboards will have moved everyone here as much as you have moved me. And he would be so delighted, I'm sure, to know that you're here. So James, or Hem to his friends, was so clearly loved and so passionate about his own loves, delighting in so much and leaving so much sadness in his absence. So today I hope that you can revisit your memories of this person who touched upon your lives in ways that really no one else ever could have done. His touch upon your life was unique because of who he was and of his particularness and his personality. And I've simply been asked by James's family just to read out some contributions, and they're beautiful. And I really am so grateful to all of you who've given them. I feel very, very honoured to have been entrusted with these stories. I hope that in your deep sadness and shock, you draw comfort from the knowledge that he lived a rich life and he brought so much joy to so many. So we're going to start with a little history of James's life, which James's dad Tony has written for us. And I'm going to be just reading out other people's stories. They are their voices, not mine. So if you get a little tired with my voice, I'm sorry, but I just needed to read on behalf of other people. So here's this man who inspired so many of you to skate, to make music, to play music together. And this is how he started. So he's being mourned profoundly in the present by his skateboarding community, and all of these skateboards that I've seen that were painted, the vigil that you held. He really had a huge impact, and his loss is so real for you. This is a time to bring back those warm, happy times, and to bring back who he was as a boy and at different points in his time. As you continue to grieve, and you will do so for some time, for a lifetime, hearing these stories will remind you of those funny times, those quirky ways, that energy and wildness which made him who he was and had such an impact upon those around him. And I'm absolutely certain that they will make you laugh. So he's born on October the 9th in 1973 at the Victoria Cottage Hospital in Lichfield. James's family lived in Whittington Village, and James attended the village school until 1984, when the family moved to Lichfield and he attended King Edward's School in the city. When James left school at 16, it was the height of the industrial crisis. Whole industries were in decline and unemployment soared. For school leavers, there were few jobs and fewer career prospects. And at one point, James joined his sister Victoria working as a sous chef in a Chelsea restaurant, where she was head chef, and he learned his culinary skills, which served him well in later life. And I know many of you have enjoyed his cooking. But he decided upon his choices, music and skateboarding. He took up the electric bass guitar and he found a local teacher to get him started. Later he combined with friends Richard Edwards and James Cruckwell to form Gloy. The band were locally successful, attracting many fans. And although the band later broke up, James followed his chosen career, appearing in many gigs over the coming years. And skateboarding, as we've seen, became his passion. He would travel far and wide just to practice his skills. And then one day he and his friends decided that a local facility should be available to attract followers of this sport. And so the Lichfield Skate Park Association was formed to raise funds to campaign for the city to build a proper skate park. And this took some years, but eventually we have such a facility in Beacon Park. Meanwhile, James had begun working in construction, discovering his talent as a plasterer and earning money self-employed, which suited his freewheeling lifestyle. This skill helped develop the skills necessary to give concrete the fine finish demanded by skaters. And he travelled extensively, helping to create fine skate parks that skaters will enjoy for years to come. I mean, I've never really thought about that, about how you would need someone that was great at plastering. And Victoria was telling me that the finish on that plaster was like nothing you'd ever see. It was just polished to perfection. So we have some family memories, some memories from cousins Harriet and Charlotte and Aunt Veronica. James was passionate in everything he was interested in. He was a perfectionist. He was a free spirit, following his own path in life and not others, which takes a fair amount of courage. He used his creativity to improve the lives of others through his music and his efforts for the skateboarding community. His sense of the right thing to do was evident from an early age. When age 7, he told his auntie Veronica off when she was enjoying a cigarette. The smoking is very bad for you. He was pivotal at family gatherings with his sense of fun, his massive talent, and often involved the family in his jamming sessions. I've seen video evidence of this. And they sounded pretty good, the jamming sessions at home. And this is a memory from Toby, James's oldest friend. I suspect you're going to enjoy this and relate very closely. I first met James at the age of 3 at Whittington Nursery. James's adventurous and fearless nature was by this time already well developed. As my mother has reminded me, he kept getting us banned from the climbing frames for his overzealous antics. James' adventurous nature continued into his early teen years, which resulted in our being in the interview room of the Lichfield police station. It's not what you think. We had decided one Halloween we would take a midnight trip to the local woods. Unfortunately for us, there had been an attempted break-in in the vicinity, and the police were combing the area for culprits. We were deemed to be those likely villains, and they whisked us back to the Nick. I can still remember clearly the duty sergeant going through our kit bag, and the first item he pulled out was a stainless steel survival wire saw, which did bear an uncanny resemblance to an SAS weapon. James's detailed explanation of its beneficial uses in woodland management unfortunately was on deaf ears. The sergeant then returned to the bag, rubbing his hands in glee and pulling out the next item, and said, "What do we have here then?" To which James' deadpan response was, "It's a frying pan." We must have been the only people ever to be charged with attempted burglary armed with half a pound of sausages and a pack of streaky bacon. In our later teen years, music and guitars took over. Despite never being a band together in our youth, we took advantage of our spare time during the lockdown to record an entire album together, churning out what are sure to be future classics, such as Brainsucker, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and Five Before Breakfast. James, with his vivid imagination, more often than not coming up with the song titles. For the last 17 years, James and I have worked together in construction, turning our hands to everything from driveways and paving to ponds and pergolas. But on one occasion we had an inquiry for an enormous oak triple garage carport. I asked James, "Do you really think we can take this on?" To which he replied, "No worries, Tobe, I got top marks in woodwork at night school for my bird table." In the last 3 weeks I lost my wingman at work, the best bass player I ever knew, and my oldest friend. So I'm going to invite James's dad Tony to come and speak.
Thank you for coming to this event. I think we try not to think of the event on the 13th of July that's caused this. It only makes us very sad and shocked, and it was a tragic event. But we're here today to celebrate the life of this amazing man who was our son. I wanted to read out this piece from Dougie Higginbotham. Is Dougie here today?
Yep, Tony. Right.
There you are. No escape, you see, man. I'm gonna read this out loud.
Okay.
Dougie and James were schoolmates, and Dougie penned all this himself. And he said James hated censorship and his life wasn't very PG, so I hope I don't offend. But here are some recollections from Techno Gloy. There was a piece, "This is the sound of James's bass," if you've ever heard that.
You will hear it.
And with a bit of luck you'll hear it today. Our brother Hem lived life to the max. James was ride or die. A legend not only in Lichfield, but anywhere he cared to travel to, and that was extensive. From New York City to LA, Dubai to Shanghai, from Muckley Corner to Bloxwich, he touched people's lives and made us all laugh our heads off. Hem was one of a kind, unforgettable, a gentleman, a rock star, a skate pro, a top chef and a chronic master craftsman. James always put his heart and soul into anything he put his mind to. From styling dreadlocks to achieving grade 8 in music to fixing my dad's bathroom and kitchen. I'm surprised my dad hired him, as his previous efforts at our house was to draw a massive misfit skull on my ceiling perfectly. Raise your hand if you have a tattoo by Hem. Yes? No? Those guys must be at work or in jail right now. Hem was totally fearless. He could drop into a mega vertical skate ramp while being surrounded by the world's best pro skaters and not be intimidated at all. Maybe it was because Hem had lobbied the government to fund and then built that skate park himself. James could also inspire the youth to skate and keep fit and healthy. Yes, James was totally fearless. Oh, except he would call me at home at midnight, petrified, to come and get a daddy longlegs out of my bath. Hem was the only pacifist I know with a massive collection of knives. He only used his huge muscles to cook mussels. A style icon, James always dressed the part. Whether we were being chased by gangbangers in South Central LA or San Franciscan gay pride marches, James looked the part and looked good. If we were in El Segundo, he dressed like a Mexican homeboy. If we went to the Castro district of San Francisco, he went shirtless in a full-length gold fur-rimmed coat. James always pulled it off. That counts for my inheritance from James. Hem was both heavy metal and hip-hop. He was in my gang and yours. Hem was the last of the Mohicans with his rainbow mohawk and a dreadlocked rasta before we all culturally appropriated it. The next day he could be a skinhead or a platinum blonde. I was waiting for a full-on mullet, but it never happened, but you would never know. Hem's devotion to metal meant he had a huge, long, massive hair, magnificent, long, blonde ringlets that any woman would kill to have, or pay hundreds for at a salon. The hairstyle didn't really work for street skating, so Hem cut off his t-shirt sleeve and put it on his head. Voila! A head gasket was invented, and James was actually able to see while skating. Was Hem the first person to get a man bun in the 90s? A do-it-yourself shaved grade 0 undercut before every chap got one 30 years later. We jumped off the pier at Manhattan Beach in the dark during a surf storm. Dripping wet in our underpants, we were rescued by some Valley Girl cheerleaders before the LAPD could arrest us. James was ahead of his time. James rode a hoverboard constructed by his dad from motorcycle and lawnmower parts 3 decades before the rest of us got an e-scooter. You remember that, Nigel? Yeah. Hem was electrocuting his drinking water way before everyone started doing it. James had a laser pointer and a vape pen a decade before they were in vogue. I always believed in Hem. I got a job at Granada Television in Manchester, filming a late-night TV show with Noddy Holder from Slade presenting. I managed to persuade Noddy to book Hem's band Gloy to play on the show. Granada loved them and wanted Gloy to be the house band. Unfortunately, the guitarist Whammer went to Darkness instead. Talented in so many ways, James changed up his passions and career more times than his Union Jack boxer shorts. James was an artist, hedonist, anarchist, bassist, botanist, cyclist, conspiracy theorist, hairstylist, nutritionist, fashionista, hedonist, experimentalist, constructionist, pharmacist, oh yeah, philanthropist, electrolyst, tattooist and vapist. He was on top of everybody's blacklist. I never expected him to break up the band like this. We are totally pissed. WTF him. Okay, I'm still a hemist. This is you, Doug. I'm still a hemist, a tourist, Satanist, pacifist, and a cunning linguist. Life was never dull when Hem was around. I took him on a family holiday to Brittany for 2 weeks in 1991. And we conquered Mount Saint Michel literally by jumping over all the barriers and trespassing up to the high spire. We borrowed an abandoned boat only to find out it had a massive hole in it which sank in the Atlantic and we had to swim back in the dark. Em then cooked us all a barbecue on the beach on a spade and we all got food poisoning. He mistakenly bought 200 non-alcoholic beers because they were cheaper and his French wasn't as good as his German. We broke into an abandoned Nazi bunker on BMXs and covered ourselves in duct tape to get a suntan tattoos. It's Brittany, bitch. Speaking of spires, I offered to buy Ham a tour to go up the high spires of Lichfield Cathedral. On a rare day they were offered in 2018, only to be rebuffed that he'd already climbed up them many years ago, at night. James wasn't one for resting, so I won't say RIP. Instead, to someone as unique, original and irreplaceable as James, I say rest in power, my brother. Riff in peace. Riff in power. Chord breast in peace. I mean jest in peace. Ride in peace. Come in peace and go in peace. Ring in peace. M was totally ripped. So when you get to heaven, or with your alien friends, just let it rip. Thank you, guys. I wanted to say a few words about my son, but that pretty well sums him up. Amazing man. A sad time, the beginning of last month, but a joyous life led, and what I wanted to do is to try and, if we can, make a display or demonstrate our love for James. Slipping into the vernacular now, sorry. I thought if you loved James as we did as a son, you could put your hand up. We loved him as a son. Victoria loved him as a brother. Sam loved him as an uncle. Harriet, Charlotte, and Chris and Andy loved him as a cousin. And Veronica and Mike, and my sister Pat and Lloyd, they all loved him as a nephew. And I think if we all express our love for James, whether it's a schoolmate or a workmate, a fellow band member, for his music, for his skimming, for his plastering, for his skate parks, if we all try hard enough, maybe somewhere, somehow, he may pick up on that love we have for him. So thank you for everybody coming and expressing your love for our son. And now I'd like another round of applause for you all for turning up today.